Since my last attempt at a YouTube video for some odd reason didn't cut it, in terms of turning every discussion on the internet into productive debates between thoughtful individuals, I thought about how the theory behind our perspective on the pursuit of truth can be manifested into direct applications. Being open to new ideas while still maintaining your critical thinking is good and all, but how do you actually talk to Larry, who's convinced the Earth is flat? And why would you even want to engage in a debate with someone who's clearly not quite thinking straight, right? Right?
Wrong.
We're all not quite thinking straight. We all just make our best attempts at finding out what's true and what's going on in general. Although I must add that some of those attempts are clearly quite more sophisticated than others. Everything starts with being motivated. For those of us who find satisfaction in pursuing the truth, the primary motivation is already there. If you think someone is clearly on the wrong track, you want to help correct that. But why would you want to deal with some random guy that you never met that is spewing nonsense in some comment section? Well, most of us derive satisfaction from making the world a better place in general. Your own point of view can act as a valuable counterbalance in this world of echo chambers and ideological bubbles. If not for the participants in the conversation themselves, then at least for quiet observers who prefer to merely read what others are writing. But how do you make sure that this conversation is the most thoughtful and well-mannered it can be? By finding basic common ground. And this common ground is the pursuit of truth itself. Larry cares about the shape of the world. He seemingly cares a lot about it being flat. At least enough for him to take the time to announce it to the world. And hey, that's what you care about as well. You just came to a different conclusion. State your intention. Before the first word is written, you need a different attitude towards Larry. You can identify with him by realizing that both of you want to know what's true. And this is what you should announce to him in your first message. Why do you think the Earth is flat? How did you come to this conclusion? I'm absolutely willing to change my mind if you show me convincing evidence. This is not meant as a strategic ploy. This is how I personally would feel about a conversation with a flat earther. If the Earth is indeed flat, I want to know. Don't insult or belittle. Another obvious but still important rule should feel more natural to us now that we can identify with Larry. Insulting or belittling is nothing more than venting your frustration, which sometimes is just a human thing to do. But why even waste our time talking to a stranger if all we do is alienating him, pushing him away from criticism and further into his echo chamber? Just punch a pillow, go meditate or talk it out with your local guru. This emotional incontinence has brought us into this mess in the first place. Accept good arguments. Don't succumb to that intense feeling of ego and pride, and actually accept and acknowledge good arguments. More often than not, your opponent will appreciate and reciprocate this. Larry might want to overcome his ego as well, and actually accept good arguments himself. Made a mistake? Just apologize. The same thing goes for after you made a mistake. You get frustrated and couldn't help but weave an insult into your response? Acknowledge it. Apologize and afterwards try to move on. Posted a dishonest argument? Apologize. Again, this will help in building trust between you and Larry. You're here to argue about your description of reality, not to engage in petty childish behavior. And apologizing is the best way to make this clear. You'll be surprised how much nicer a conversation becomes after someone honestly admitted that they've made a mistake. Just say, I don't know. Another very important aspect is to think carefully about whether you actually are well informed about the things that you are about to communicate. Most of us are an expert in some field, be it that we know how to play an instrument or some kind of sport or some field of study. And thus we know what it feels like to keep learning more and more and to look back on our past self and think, wow, I was completely clueless. And this perspective should enable us to be more realistic regarding what we actually know and should talk about. Nobody knows everything, and it's okay to admit that. Just try saying it next time and you'll see how much weight has been taken off your shoulder when you don't have to scramble to somehow glue those crumbs of knowledge together and to pretend that it's a cake. Criticize the evidence or lack thereof. After hopefully opening up the conversation with your first message in which you expressed openness and curiosity, there are a couple of scenarios that might follow. Larry might not present any evidence at all. If this is the case, you can criticize him for just that. No evidence, no way for you to understand how he came to his conviction. You want to know if the Earth is flat, but if Larry doesn't provide any evidence, then that's that, I guess. Admittedly, this is where a lot of conversations will come to an end. But even at this point, you have accomplished something. You have shown that Larry probably doesn't build his convictions on evidence, and that's a valuable insight, especially for others to see. Larry presents evidence that you can't accept. If Larry presents evidence that doesn't satisfy you, you can now talk about why it doesn't. The outcome here very much depends on how much time you want to invest. Researching a topic and finding good evidence for yourself that disproves Larry can be quite draining. And to be honest, some debates just aren't worth it. But on the other hand, you have the opportunity here to learn about your own description of reality. Do I actually know for certain that the Earth is an oblate spheroid? Which assumptions do I make, and which scientific evidence do I ultimately trust? I personally have gone down quite a few rabbit holes over the years, and what I found out about myself and my perception of reality was fascinating. But hey, our time is limited, right? While I think that you shouldn't even engage in a conversation if you're not willing to spend at least some time researching, I don't blame anyone who shies away from spending hours upon hours of their time. Just make sure to disengage gracefully from the conversation if that's the case. The easiest way to disengage is simply to refrain from throwing in some last-minute ad hominems on your way out. But I personally would just state that I don't have the time and leave. Not very satisfying, but that's just how it is sometimes. Larry presents evidence that actually convinces you. You are now a flat earther. Okay? What the fuck? Larry manages to shatter your spheroidal world. He gets to you. He touches your brain in spots you didn't even know existed. The Earth has been flattened, and you with it. Well, this is the outcome that you wanted, right? You actually learned something and have grown as a person in the process of it. For real though, this is the stuff we should all strive for. Maybe Larry doesn't convince you, but others will. As rare as these moments are, when they finally arrive, you should acknowledge and appreciate them. And maybe you even manage to set your ego aside completely and do what almost no one can. Express gratitude towards the person that convinced you. This is one of the most beautiful things that can happen on the internet. Bringing people together and actually learning from each other. Take pride in how you behaved. But no matter the outcome of the conversation, no matter how shitty other people treat you, no matter how frustrating it was, always remember to take pride in your own behavior. If you manage to stay on top of things and actually try to have a well-mannered discussion, then that's something you should acknowledge. Get yourself an ice cream and smile into the mirror. But this is also where another very important mechanism comes into play. Encouraging other readers. I'm afraid most of what I said won't be immediately as effective as we all want it to be. There will still be people who frustrate you to no end, but that's okay. Because most of your conversations online are public and can be read by others. As long as there are other readers who quietly approve of the way you handle the conversation, then you will have made a real impact. The next time one of those people is engaging in a conversation themselves, they will remember you as that one person that handled himself very well in an otherwise very frustrating debate. They will want to be more like you and focus on behaving in a grown-up way just like you did. This mechanism has the potential to lead to a great exponential effect on other people, even though only a few people have consciously decided to work on improving online discourse. This effect can be very hard, if not impossible, to see. And that's why we all should keep this in mind and remember the next time we're discussing something. My good conduct will affect other people that are reading this. And this is where my last point comes into play. Applaud other good discussions. To make this mechanism of affecting other people more visible, you should commend other people openly if you appreciated the way they handled themselves. Just say what you think, to make everyone feel a little bit better about themselves. All it costs you is a few seconds of your time to say, "Great discussion, I learned a lot." Alright, that was quite a lot. Let's quickly summarize. Start by stating that you're open to being convinced. Be friendly. Just don't insult or belittle. Be humble. Be ready to accept good arguments. Apologize when needed. Know your limits. Admit that you don't know. Focus on the evidence. Encourage. Be proud of your own and commend other people's good conduct. If you found some useful ideas in this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to Hirnstoff. Feel free to share it with your favorite arch nemesis online, and most importantly, stay curious.